Okay, so let's go over some of the basics for IELTS speaking. The IELTS speaking, most students think of as being the easiest part of the exam, and it's probably true. The IELTS speaking, I always tell students that IELTS speaking is easier than the TOEFL speaking. However, you can't take it for granted. Okay, there's certain things you need to understand in order to achieve a high score on the IELTS speaking section. So let's first start off by taking a look at some of the basics. All right, the entire exam is going to last for about 12 to 15 minutes. It's going to be it's a real conversation. Okay, you're sitting down at a desk, or you're sitting down at a table across from the examiner, and they're directly across from you, and you're talking with a person. So one of the things that makes it a challenge sometimes with the IELTS exam is that you don't know what the person across the table from you is going to say, and you have to be able to respond right away in real time. And I think a lot of students underestimate the challenge of doing that. So you know you need to be prepared, because also most students don't prepare for this. They don't really prepare for it, and so that's why they have a difficulty. In terms of your grading, you're graded in four main areas. They're going to look at your fluency, grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary, and each one of those is graded equally. Fluency is very, very important. You want to be able to demonstrate really good fluency and very good command of the grammar. Pronunciation is also something that's significant, but you'll notice that you don't see accent on there anywhere. Okay, you're not graded on your accent. So a lot of students are worried about a concern regarding their accent, but you don't have to really worry about that. You just have to make sure that you pronounce the words properly. Okay. There are three main parts on IELTS speaking. Part one is basically an interview. They're going to be sitting down and asking you questions about who you are, where you're from, what's your name, and then they'll also ask you things like, do you like music? And ask you some questions about music. Do you like reading? Ask you some questions about reading. Some real basic kind of interview questions. That's the best way to think about it. Is it that you're doing an interview? In part number three, here is where you have, part number two is a short presentation that's going to last for about 2 minutes. Basically, they're going to give you a topic card, and on that topic card, it's going to have a main question, and then usually 3 or 4 sub questions. And you have to look at those questions. You can take notes, and that's one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of students make, is they don't take notes. But you can kind of outline within 1 minute how you want to structure your answer for part two, and then you can speak up to 2 minutes uninterrupted by the examiner. Here's where they really are taking a look at your fluency. In part three, these are going to be follow-up questions to part number two. They're related to the same topic, but part number three has the most difficult questions, because the questions are going to be much longer, and the questions are going to have more difficult vocabulary. Okay. Part number one, some other basic information. I think part number one is where you have to show that you can shine. The questions are easy, and it's a great chance for you to make a great first impression with the grader. You want to make sure that you give really solid answers to part number one. Show off your sentence variety, your vocabulary, and your synonym language. Show them that. Show them that you love to speak and that you're fluent. If you do great in part one, it gives a great first impression to the grader, and they're going to think more highly of you. In part number two is where I would say most students really are able to. This is where really I think part two is really what divides a person that can get a 6 from a person that can get a 7. because in part number 2, you have to show fluency for up to 2 minutes. Right? You have to speak for 2 minutes uninterrupted. And if you can form mistake-free sentences, show a variety of sentences in your speaking in part 2, I think that's where students can really impress the grader more than any other area. Because the grader is sitting back and listening to you. And if you really show a high level of fluency and command of the language, wow, part 2 is where you really are going to be able to get it. Part number 3 is the most challenging section because of the vocabulary and length of the question. As I told you earlier, these are follow-up questions of part number 2. And what you want to make sure that you do is that you really try to speak, or for each question, try to give about 2 to 3 sentences to answer each question. All right? Basically, you want to answer, extend. What I mean by that is give a general response, and then extend that answer again in another sentence, and then explain it some more in one more sentence. So answer, extend. Some basic information about the examiner. They're going to come from an English-speaking country. They actually have special training. I know this for a fact. There's special training so they know exactly how to grade you, because the IELTS people want the grading to be consistent. Don't think they're your friend. Some students get fooled because they say, well, the examiner was smiling at me, so I feel I did better. No, they're not there to be your friend or anything like that. They're there to grade you. Okay? They're going to grade your performance. So, thanks a lot for listening to this opening on the basics of IELTS speaking, and I'll talk to you soon.